So I'll just start with a little bit of a personal intro here. So I'm Robbie Coville. My job title is Ecosystem Products and Market Specialist with the PA DCNR Bureau of Forestry. My role is really three main parts. It's building capacity for agroforestry and non-timber forest products. It's a role that Tracy Coulter, some of you may know, she was taking that on. I'm also advising the public on ecosystem services and incentive programs. Forest carbon is the big one, but there are many others. Hopefully we see some beautiful progress there. And then facilitating networks, and it's great to see all of you together here today. This kind of peer exchange is really important. So I'm just going to go, 15 minutes, kind of quick through overview of agroforestry and how it relates to tree nuts, show you some farms in Pennsylvania, and talk about some of the opportunities and challenges. And I realize many people are not from PA here, but I hope a lot of this will feel relevant for you and maybe be models for other places. So many of you probably are familiar with agroforestry. But just as a quick refresher, I wanted to show some of the terms you may hear around it. Just forestry and farming in the same system. We're combining trees and shrubs with crops and or livestock. On the bottom, there's four words that start with the letter I, and that's how USDA defines agroforestry. It's a really helpful tool when it's not so clear cut. Agroforestry systems are often diverse and not so simple. But looking at it as intentional, intensive, interactive, and integrated is a really good rule of thumb. And we could unpack that, but that's a different conversation. When people ask me if a nut orchard is agroforestry, that's what I think of, though. If it's not integrative, if it's not intensive, ecologically intensive, that is probably not something I would call agroforestry. Or if it looks more like what you see on bottom, these images, that is a bit more of an integrative design. That's where nut trees and agroforestry do look a lot alike. Also just want to point out that this is an ancient practice, and there are some really wonderful images here from Ernest Smith of Tuscarora Seneca Nation, painted in the early 1900s. On the left we have some Haudenosaunee people making shagbark hickory milk, and on the top right we have people harvesting chestnuts. So these are age-old traditions we are progressing here. And so moving on from that, talking about in Pennsylvania, you've heard about riparian buffers in New York, and Pennsylvania, for good and for bad, has become something of a leader in agroforestry, largely because we are also a leader in contributing excess nitrogen to the Chesapeake Bay, among other water quality issues. So riparian buffers have been a huge part of how we maintain the breadbasket we have growing in Pennsylvania, while also doing good by our water resources. And that looks a lot like what you just heard about riparian buffers. But I'm glad that the state has recognized the importance of this vision Andrew shared, that it's a missed opportunity if all we're doing is planting straight species native trees. Many may come on their own. I don't know if I'd trust that given all the other disease and pest pressure and all that, invasive plants, so to speak. But there's this opportunity for cultural and economic appeal to these conservation practices. And that's what the state is calling multifunctional buffers. It's what we think of as in agroforestry settings. And so it's really exciting that we have this opportunity along all these edges of the landscape to build in those kinds of economic and cultural benefits that Andrew was talking a bit about. So we'll keep moving through the slides here. I want to show you what some of these farms are looking like in Pennsylvania. There's one more point just on, again, this economic and cultural aspect. We're not just solving problems with trees, which is a wonderful, conservation approach. Trees offer so many benefits, but really weaving trees and the gifts that they offer more deeply into our lives, our farms, our landscape, creates a much more lasting effect. And I heard Andrew saying that too, of, we need something that's going to really be resilient over the long term through a lot of changes. And so that's where thinking of the products from trees as well and designing that into these systems is critical. There are so many benefits, a lot of ecosystem services, and we certainly don't and perhaps shouldn't try to monetize all of them. But the plastic fencing that travels the world, this is grown right here in Pennsylvania, and there's a lot of beauty in every step along the way, from growing the trees out to enjoying the baskets in the end. Along the side, they have hickories and walnuts and hickories that are, hickories, walnuts, and hazelnuts, among other trees that are maturing. So these kinds of stacked enterprises can be a key way we get more nuts in the landscape. Got a few more farms to share with you, just highlighting different aspects of this community. Here we're looking at Lenalea Farm in Lehigh County. This is Bob Sipe's place. I don't know if Emily Sipe is with us, but there are a lot of folks who are very connected with this place. And Bob is a longtime member of PA Nut Growers Association. I just want to highlight the importance of communities and networks here. We see in the far right picture Bob, who's I think 93 years old now, on a golf cart next to his favorite persimmon tree. And a lot of people he's generously sharing that with. That's something really special. Those people are going to go on to propagate that persimmon, enjoy it, share it with their families and their homes. This kind of network, combining forces and sharing what we've done through the generations, is critical to that long-term resilient system we want to see. In the middle section, you see some farm show imagery here. Pennsylvania Farm Show is a great place to show off your nuts, discover what the wonderful cultivars are, come become a nut judge, and we'll feed you like really wonderful nuts. It's a great opportunity that I think PA can offer the region too. So we'll keep it moving. Carrying legacies. I think you're going to hear from Louise Bugby, so I'm not going to get into this a lot. But Louise is here. Her and other people here, Buzz Ferver, Zach Elfers, have propagated some really special trees from John Hershey's nursery, and it is now in perpetuity protected in public ownership, in a public park, in a model that is ready and rearing to go to other public parks. How cool is that? So Hershey Nursery North in Northampton County, Pennsylvania. Check out Louise's poster and talk to her. That's just some really beautiful carrying on the legacies. So we'll keep it moving and just highlighting two other examples. There's so many more that I wish I could share with you here, and there's a lot of beautiful forest farming related to tree nuts as well that I'm not sharing. But just to point out that, again, from a state agency perspective, nuts meet a lot of needs and tie the conservation work into so much cultural and cultural and economic richness. So on the left, we've got Wild Fox Farm in Berks County. There was a great field day there last fall. Just a quick story. Trying to plant riparian buffers, often I hear from farmers, they're like, well, does it have to be 35 acres? That's our minimum. Can it be 10 acres? Just one row of trees is better than nothing, right? Sort of, but 35 feet really matters. This farm, it was like, can it be 300 feet? Could it be 500 feet? Like, how big could we make this thing? Totally flipped the script. And the reason why is because we're not just planting those straight species we were talking about before, just native seedlings. We were planting Rutgers hazelnuts, cultivars, really nice black locust cultivars that are really useful for their farm enterprise, many stacked enterprises that complement each other. So this is the kind of synergy that really takes conservation to a whole nother level. And then on the right, we got Fairmount Food Forest in Philadelphia, one of many examples of communities working with nut trees and other trees to provide some meaningful, again, kind of staples that are meeting basic needs. The foods that are grown there are really expensive, and the people who are most engaged in this food forest are in food deserts that don't even have access readily to those foods in the first place. And now they're having, community picnics with chestnuts grown on site. Again, the cultural and economic benefits that can come with conservation are huge, and I'm so grateful that we've got permaculture practitioners and state agencies and others digging into this work. So I got two more slides for you, a little bit information dense here, but I just wanted to throw in front of you some of the opportunities and challenges, and we can start conversations that'll carry over the next few days here. So there's a lot of interest and investment in agroforestry, and it carries over to tree nuts. So I have a link here, and it'll come up later, this PA Agroforestry Assistance. It's a big, complicated kind of spreadsheet, but the idea is that kind of resource, you could look it up, you could print it out, and see what are the types of funding sources that might be relevant for different practices. This is an early iteration. I welcome your feedback. If I had more time, I'd welcome your heckling on anything here. But it's just getting started, and I hope there's many more opportunities ahead there. So now is a good time to be implementing. We'll talk about challenges. There's also a lot of good technical assistance. In PA, we have a service forestry contingent that is going pretty strong. We've got foresters all over the state who are there to help, and many are interested in tree nuts as well. And now we have capacity and funding to train them up in these areas. There are many other groups doing that as well. Many are here. Propagate, Trees for Grazers, Rodale Institute is getting into this a lot for the organic side of it. So that's good. And expanding awareness. Nutty nutrition, that was great. And then network opportunities. You all probably don't need to hear that too much. You're all here. So there's just a lot of good networking to be done there. Challenges, we've really got to do more train the trainer work. And there are folks from Appalachian Sustainable Development here. Really happy to see you. So there's, agroforestry training for natural resource professionals, I think, is going to be key. And in general, we need more entry-level opportunities as well as skill building among professionals in the field so that we can really step all this up a bunch of notches. There is also a lot of implementation funding, as I mentioned, and NNGA offers great research grants I hope you heard about, but there are needs for more flexible funding, and PA NRCS is really not supporting a lot of these practices, and the work of having quality products in terms of a nursery stock is a big bottleneck as well. So we recognize the funding needs there, and Agroforestry Coalition, a group led by Savannah Institute, but in many different hands now, has a great nursery working group with a bunch of people here trying to form a mini grant for nurseries. And that's in the stage where we just need people telling us your dream. What does that dream RFP look like? So look up the Agroforestry Coalition and help make that real. And then quality products also, there's a need for aggregation, processing, and all that. So I want to kind of wrap up on that point. We have a few different co-ops here from around the Northeast, and I'd love if we could rally at lunch coming up at 12:15, maybe in a back corner. If I can just highlight Frank in the blue shirt is a co-op advisor, so I hope you don't mind. I'm going to make you the epicenter of co-op discussion over lunch. Co-ops cooperate, that's one of the principles, so we want to foster that. And these co-ops are making real progress in being able to buy your nuts and bring them to market. We've got hickory oil here from Pennsylvania. We've got hickory oil here from Massachusetts and Vermont. I saw some other in the back. It's super exciting, and we're just getting started, folks. We're bringing vacuum harvesters into the region. So there's real capacity building going on. It's not just co-ops. It takes many hands. So just a need and a challenge, but also a huge opportunity and strength we're building. And I think that's all I got for you. Thanks for bearing with me through a fire hose treatment.